Hello and welcome to another Shared Screens review. Joining me to talk all things Plague Tale Requiem, we have Alec Bobko. How you doing, Alec?
Doing pretty good this weekend. How about you, Austin?
I'm good. I've been busy as hell. I've worked the last 5 days. I reviewed a game for 6 I'm reviewing another game for 6 I'm reviewing this game for Shared Screens. I'm doing a lot of stuff. All right. Doing a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
But Plague Tale Requiem. This game surprised me. This game is something that I did not expect to like pick up just like right off the bat. Just boom, you're right into it and it's just quality and
Hmm.
boom, 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 boom. I loved it. But we'll get into that in a second. I want to pimp the shared screen stuff. What else are we doing? We got some Andor stuff. We got some She-Hulk stuff that went up. Then we have this review. What else we got?
Yeah, so if you're watching this the day this uploads, the previous day is actually our 2-year anniversary podcast that goes up.
This is an important
So
one.
go watch that. Yep. And then I believe I don't watch House of the Dragon, but I believe it's actually this past weekend was the finale. So that episode should also be live too. So go check those out.
Right after this review, we should have a Gotham Knights review going up. Just a lot of content around this time of the year, as per se for like video game YouTubers. So
Yep.
it's kind of the way it goes. So, Alec, I want to get into your surface level thoughts because you said you put in around 4 hours, correct? Does that sound right?
Uh I don't know about time, but I got through chapter 4.
Okay, so ballparking around that anyway. Okay, so
Exactly.
what are your surface level thoughts of Plague Tale Requiem? Available on Game Pass, which is awesome.
Yes. I just for context, I did play this on PC through Game Pass. Um I'll say this game is looks amazing graphically and technically it is amazing too because I was watching some other reviews or actually just say a review. I can't remember which one I'd watched, but they had mentioned that in A Plague Tale Innocence that they could only have 5,000 rats on screen at one time, and then in Requiem, they're able to have 300,000
Oh
rats on
boy,
screen at one time.
what an upgrade!
So
Yeah,
like,
shows.
exactly, it's just like in that game was 2019, so like 3 years they're able to increase their technical capabilities by that much, which is awesome.
I like that you played on PC because I played on Series S, which is the new potato of current gen consoles.
Hmm.
So it's like, but I had no issues. The lighting looked great, the load times were great. Like I had no problems, even on a 1080 TV because I mean it's a Series S. So
Yeah. Getting more into the game itself, um, I kind of told you I was kind of feeling a bit of a roller coaster on this one, just between of absolutely loving it and not really being a fan of it because I actually only played half the game of Innocence back in 2019. I don't know if I just kind of fell off of it, but I'm not the biggest person into stealth games. Like
sure.
even in games like Dishonored, I tend to go the more I try to stealth, and then when I don't, I just kill everybody.
It's kind
So
of how I go too. I
it's
get it. I totally get it.
so I don't know. In Innocence, it just felt very repetitive. Like so many just stealth segments back to back to back to back, where it just some other stuff had come out or some other shows or whatever happened in that year.
Right.
I just dropped it because I was just lost interest. But this game,
I'm happy to share that this is not nearly as repetitive. Like they
it,
changed up the formula a lot for the
I'm
entirety of the game.
I was getting to that, but yeah, just because man, there's that segment in the first, or I think it's yeah, because they don't have a prologue. It's just right into the first chapter. But right at the end of that, where you're just basically running through those fields and just slinging everybody, headshotting everybody, and it just feels so good.
Fair enough. There isn't an epilogue. There is a prologue for tips. Prologue is at the end, right? I got that terminology right? Is it epilogue first?
No, it's prologue at the
Oh,
beginning, epilogue at the end.
huh. I'm dumb. Okay, because in my brain I always go pre and post. Like pro, it wasn't pre and whatever. My brain mixes those
Mm,
up. Anyway, but there is a thing at the end. At the very end, there is like the
gotcha,
chapter
gotcha.
17 there, and it's short, sweet little narrative
Hmm.
thing. Yeah. So
But I honestly, I'm really, or where I left it off, I'm actually really digging it. I did have a couple little bugs, nothing major, but one that did kind of make me rage quit a little bit. um, so we can get into that when we have some more in-depth thoughts.
sure,
But
good into that.
yeah, overall, I don't know if because there's so many games out right now, especially I gotta get
Absolutely.
to Gotham Knights, so I'd probably be dropping this for a bit, but I could see myself getting back to it. I was enjoying this story, and I really want to see where Hugo and Amicia go. Yeah, so
That seems like a victory of not only like the sequel, because you said like the first one you were kind of lukewarm at best on, just because like the repetitive nature and
exactly.
stuff. So like
Yep.
the fact that the sequel on Game Pass got you in, and you're like, you know what, I could see myself if there's a lull at any point. Eventually, I
Yep.
pick up this game again. That's a victory in my eyes. So
Oh yeah, for
totally,
sure.
I totally get that. So I do think we should go right back to the bugs. I want to get like the bad right out of the way
Yeah.
at the top. And for the record, I don't have a ton of bad.
Mhm.
There are repetitive things in this game, but if you compare it to the first game, like not even remotely close. Like I totally understand what you're saying when you say like the first game felt a bit repetitive. It totally changed the formula on this one. Back to bugs. There are these like segments where I don't know how many you would have experienced, Alec, but
Mhm.
where there's like a log leaning in front of like a little two rocks. You have to like squeeze in between them. You have to
Oh
like
yeah.
hit
Yep.
Y or whatever it is on the
Yep.
PC, and you like someone holds it up and then you shimmy in there.
I was
Well,
playing
on
on
two,
controller, just so it
okay,
was
fair enough.
so why. Yeah.
On like one or two situations, I want to say two, but I don't know for sure. It might have just been the same one a few times. I'm not sure, but like I would hit Y on it and just nothing would happen. So then Amicia and
Mhm.
Hugo are just staring at it. And it's because I had a third companion, and I know for I don't know for a fact, but I'm fairly certain it's because it was waiting for that cinematic to carry on of all three of them
Ah.
holding it. So nothing would happen. And since I already initiated that button, it just wouldn't open. And I'm just like sitting here, like I know this is where I need to go, and I'm hiding, and I'm trying to. So I'm like, I would have to restart and get to the checkpoint. Luckily, checkpointing and respawning really quick. Like me
Oh yeah.
losing progress, I never felt like I lost that much progress if it was a bug or if I was like I don't know what I'm doing. I never felt like it was a huge detriment to lose in this game. So that is a plus in my eyes. The other
Yeah.
bug, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say yeah, because like the couple times I did have faced the, I would say, I know one for sure was probably a bug. One was just kind of I don't know, just one of those technical spots where I was walking around and I literally put one foot
Yeah.
outside of the light into the rats, and
Mhm.
it just like sucked me in. So
Mhm.
it's like I'm like, come on, really? Like I
Have
was trying
you
to. Oh, go ahead.
have you had any of the chase segments yet, where you're either running towards the camera or you're running away from the
I
rats or
just had
both?
that. Yep.
Okay, there was one where it might have been the first one or second one that because there's like three or four in the game I
Because
think, and I
there's
like
one
them
in
every
chapter
time.
4
Okay,
for
was it the
sure.
first one or second one? Because I know it was early on. Regardless, I had to like dip my pinky toe into like where the rats were,
Mm,
and they're like immediately on me, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, and there are times
yeah.
where you're like hiding in the light from them, and you're like basically touching them, and they're not getting you. It's like,
Exactly. Yeah.
come on, game. But yeah, so I get that. So I did have a similar glitch to that. The one bug that I think is kind of my fault, if that makes any sense. Bear with me.
Mm,
There's a sequence where you're with a character and they have a shield, and they fall into this pit of rats, and you're like, oh crap, and he's like yelling at you like, light it, light something, I need light, and so you're supposed to light a torch on the wall or something on the wall. Well,
mm.
me thinking I'm clever, I shoot an arrow on fire onto his shield, and I'm like, haha, I am smart, and it worked, and I was like,
Oh.
no way, I'm the smartest person ever. Come to find out, 10 minutes later, I needed to do that for a story beat. And now his shield is already burnt
Oh.
to shit. So the game does
Oh
not understand
no.
what's happening. And he's just like, come on, shoot my shield. Do it. I'm doing it over and over and over, and nothing is happening. And I'm like, what do you mean, dude? So I had to restart the entire. Luckily, I was
Oh.
like, I could run through, and it only took me like maybe 5 to 10 minutes to get back to where I was, so it
That
wasn't that bad.
sucks.
Again, I think it's kind of my fault, but like, it's still weird because I was like, I'm smart. I'm
Like
doing this
it's
my
a
way.
gameplay mechanic, but you just did it too early.
Yeah, and I can totally see how the game testers and whoever were playing through it would never have done that. Like I can totally see it because
Mm-hmm.
he never once says anything about his shield. I was just like, haha, and I panicked because he's like screaming at you. So I'm like, and I
Right,
shoot
right,
something,
right.
right? And it worked. And I'm like, huh, that must have been what I was supposed to do. Guess not, because then we get to the point where I'm actually supposed to do it, and I can't freaking do it. Anyway, so that was kind of like I was mad, but I was also kind of
Mm,
impressed in a
right.
weird way.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. But those are like the only qualms I have with like bugs and glitches. There's a
I'd
few
say,
repetitive natures and like some combat sequences that I don't love, but it never broke the game for me. Go on.
yeah. I again, my last probably the only actual bug that I had wasn't game breaking because like I was able to once I get because that was just one of those points where I just needed to move on to something else. I think I might have had to leave or something, but regardless, I had to quit out of the game. And when I got back in, it literally put me right back at that encounter. So what happened was this is one of the first times you get the extinguish or whatever it's called. And there's two torches and the guy or one of the guards there. So I put out both torches, and the rats didn't eat him. He's just standing there and just
You've
like
evolved.
it's just like what like I'm just standing there. It's like I can't do anything because I go down there, the rats are gonna get me. I go down there, he's gonna get me. So I'm just like kind of
That's an odd one.
sitting like crouching down behind this wall, and it's just like, what do I do? Because I'm out
Yeah.
of extinguish too. I'm out of like flame, so I can't like reignite it. I'm just
Mhm.
sitting there like, what's going on? Like,
There
are they
is
supposed to
a
eat them?
there is a the way in which the game is like structured. If one little thing doesn't go the way it's supposed to, it really does kind of like you don't know if it's broken or not, just because you're kind of
Exactly, yeah.
figuring it out anyway. So you're like, did I do something wrong? Am I stupid? What is there a rule that
Mm.
I'm not thinking of? But no, sometimes it is
Like,
just the game.
it almost gives me the feeling like this is nothing against the Sobo studio or anything, but just some of the way things happen, like you with the shield, or like it almost makes me feel like on the back end it's just held together by duct tape and string. Like,
Sure. It
like
does
they
not.
put so
I
much
never.
into this, but it
Sure.
just
Yeah. I see what you mean. I never got that impression as the final product, but I totally get what you mean. We're just like there's little elements where they're like, we're just gonna put a little like cover on this part and go over here and do this stuff. Like
mm,
we're gonna work on this stuff. This is good enough. I totally get that. Um, so bugs and glitches, nothing that would like sway my decision on whether or not you should give it a try, especially on Game Pass. So I
oh
think
yeah,
that
yep.
should be stressed.
And as I
Just
said, the
going,
checkpointing system is awesome. So like
yes,
the thing that
yes,
does scare me sometimes is because there is restart checkpoint and restart section. So the part where I had my rage quit moment, it said restart section. So I thought I was gonna have to start like way over, but apparently the section I was in was at the beginning of that section. So I just think this is very very nitpicky, but just the difference between sections because it doesn't necessarily give you a distinction as
yeah.
to like what's a checkpoint, what's a section,
I think I don't. This might not even be right, but I think the section is when
like the
the
objective changes possibly.
yes, that's what I was gonna say. But then because you can get a checkpoint in between objectives. Again, I don't know for
Gotcha.
sure because it does always show on the top right briefly, and then if you hit pause, it will be on the top right, like go do this or something. There was
Hmm.
one time where I just wasn't listening to the lady talking, and she said like, "Go find my husband in like that fair market
Oh
area,"
yeah, yep.
and she like
The
described
herbalist.
him, and I had no idea. I had no idea what she said, and then I reloaded it, hoping that the like it would trigger the conversation
Mm.
again. Nope. I'm just like, okay,
Oh
I'll just
jeez.
wander around here for 10 minutes. I eventually found him over
Mm.
in the corner. Yeah. Um. Okay. In terms of presentation, I think it looks great in 1080p because I played on the Series S. So I think it looked great. There was no like dip or anything there. I did have like some weird like visual, like a bar moving down the screen like once or twice.
Oh,
That was
screen
weird.
tearing probably.
Yeah, but I don't know. It was very brief. Like 'cause usually that like breaks the game a little more for me, but it was like
Mm.
very brief. And they're only there for like a second. Um, I did have a few texture pops, nothing crazy. The lighting in this game is great. I
Oh
think
yeah.
the lighting is top notch. I
I
think the fact that
was
they don't have a HUD, I love that decision.
yeah.
Yeah, that really
Uh,
worked for me in the immersion of the how pretty this whole game is.
yeah, because I played this game the first chapter or so in on my 1080p monitor, but then I'm like, you know what? Because that's the like, 1080p high refresh rate. But I'm like, this game is like it's more narrative, doesn't necessarily need the high frame rates. So actually switched over to playing on my 4K monitor, and oh my gosh, that just it really made those details just pop. And
Fair
like
enough.
it is a graphical juggernaut. Like it looks so good. So if you have the option to play in 4K, do yourself a favor and play that way.
Fair enough. as someone who doesn't like, I like the top spec stuff, but like it's never like a make or break it for me. Playing on a Series S with a 1080p, it still felt next gen. So I will
Mhm.
just put that out there. I think it's still a very valid option.
Oh
It's my
yeah.
Game Pass box, and I think people do the same thing. So
Oh yeah.
I think that's a
Same. I have
very
it.
valid option. I just don't think it took anything away. Um,
Yep.
the music in the game didn't wow me, but I really loved every time like the rats or the like plague was involved. It had that like flugelhorn creepy thing.
Yes.
Every time I
Yep.
heard that, I'm like, "Fuck,
You
damn
know
it!"
it was about to go down when that
Yeah, and
happened.
I love that. That's just you got your audio cues right. Good job, whoever did the sound
Mm-hmm.
design. And then voice acting. I love the voice acting in this game. There is not a
Mm-hmm.
character so far that I was like, oof. Like usually there's like one
Right.
person where it's like you didn't. Like, you probably did like 7 different voices, and you had to do this one too. But they're all superb, and the character moments continue out throughout the entire narrative. Not just the voice acting, like the character moments are fan fucking tastic, and I'll use that to pivot into the narrative. So yeah, this game it's very dark. And if you know anything about me, I like dark punishment type of like media. Like I'm a glutton for that kind of stuff. And there's so many instances where this reminds me of The Last of Us and like the narrative of The Last of Us, just like the nature of it, how dark it is,
Mm-hmm.
and how they lean into it, and how they lean into how you change by essentially killing others when you don't necessarily have to. Like there are character moments where you're with. Did you meet Lucas? I don't know
Yes.
how.
Yeah.
Okay.
You mean him like right from the beginning of the game because you're
Okay.
traveling with him from the end of
It's
the
all a
first
blur right
one.
now for me, man. I've been working
I
on this for.
understandable. Yep.
So when there's a moment with Lucas where you're going through and you're sneaking through a little courtyard at night, and you don't have to kill these people, but I always do at the beginning if they don't have a helmet, because I'm like, you don't have the helmet on, I can just, and it doesn't
Yep.
take like any of my ammo, so I'm just like, kapah!
Mm-hmm.
So I do that, and Lucas is like, you don't have to do that. Like, we don't have to kill these people. And Amicia is like, nah, fuck them. Essentially,
Yeah.
like, fuck these people. And you can see her like continuing to go down this dark path, and I'm like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
into this. Like,
Oh yeah.
yes, kill these
Same.
fuckers. So yeah, I enjoyed that a lot. But yeah, the tone of this game, because for those who don't know, uh, this is established in the first game, but Hugo is the younger brother of Amicia. Amicia is the character you control for, I would say, 95% of this game. Yeah, you control someone else a couple times. Um, and you are essentially his protector. He has this disease where well, it's like a curse more. I would call it more of a
Yeah.
curse rather than a disease. But
I think they
I
do
feel like
call it a curse in the game.
both work, because they're looking for a cure, and it's like, but yeah,
Right. Yeah.
I think both work. But essentially, wherever he goes, he essentially brings the plague, and he can control these rats. And by rats, like Alex said at the top of the show, they're like 300,000 on screen at a time at points, and you can literally go into them and control little globs of them to kill people. And so they're trying to basically make him turn dark side and like give in to the macula, is what they call it. And if he does that, then
Mm.
basically the plague will take full effect, and you can't stop it. So that's the narrative of the game. It gets dark and dark and dark and dark and dark because this disease, this curse is also killing him. So like even if he is like, no, I won't turn dark side, like he's gonna die. So he either dies like saving the people from the plague or like worsening the plague, or he dies because he gives into the macula. And everywhere he goes, he brings the plague, which is so sad because every time you go into a new location, shows everyone's so happy, and you're like, oh my
Oh
god, look at
yeah.
these people living their lives. And it does this so many times, Alec. There's like 3 or 4 different sections where you're like, hey, a
Oh
new city. I'm like,
no.
fuck, damn it.
Oh no.
And
Yeah,
you're
because
walking
like
in.
where you leave chapter 4, it's like yeah, it's one of those Crash Bandicoot esque segments where you're running away from the rats.
That was in my notes. I said we're doing this crash style, huh? That was my exact note.
Because it's just you just can't have that camera view and not think of the Crash Bandicoot like
Totally.
levels.
It's Crash Bandicoot and Uncharted, which one
Well,
in the same
because it's like they never control well. I'm just gonna say it. They never control well.
Yeah, and I think that's why if you because they pop up 3 or 4 times, and you're like, ugh, they're very short. Like
Exactly,
there are
yes.
chase segments where it's not entirely in that camera angle. It's like a part of that chase segment. And you're like,
Yep.
cool, all right, I understand. And I like the way they used it because they're using it to show you what's behind you, and there's just rats just fucking
yeah.
barreling at you.
Like
and you're like,
waves
"Fuck!"
of them. Like that
Yeah,
trailer. That is in the game. Like
one for one. It's so good. Loved that. I want to say before I forget too, the rat mechanic, gross or not, is one of the coolest things in video games, in my opinion. Like not just controlling them, just the fact that they're like them as a concept in the world, I
yes.
think is
Yep.
also very cool because it forces you to approach stealth differently. By
Oh, yeah.
what I mean is because Usually in a stealth game, you're like, I'm gonna hide in this bush. You do that in this game. I'm gonna hide in the darkness. You can still do this in this game. But if you hide in the darkness, you can get eaten by rats. So it's a balance to like I have to use the light to protect myself, but also as an attack because if people have torches, like you said, you can put them out with like the saltpeter or the extinguish. You can so if they don't have light source, they can't fend off the rats. So I think there's a nice delicate balance to the stealth in this, and I think that's why the stealth works for me because it's stealth done right. It's stealth that's optimized, and there's a twist. That's why I
Yep.
love stealth in this game. Does it still feel like it's missing something? Yes. I don't know what it is, but there's something like I think maybe it's the tool set because it's still very basic. It's a slingshot, it's a crossbow, and it's a jar. You know, like
Uh,
that's kind of it.
mhm.
But there's a crossbow. I might have spoiled that for you. Sorry.
I think that's in the marketing. So
Okay.
I do vaguely
So
remember seeing that in
you do
trailers.
get that a little later, but
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, pivoting back to narrative because I have a lot of notes. I am so sorry. I said talk about how every time you go to a new village, you're like, fuck, I'm gonna kill all of these people. So that's in there. I talked about character moments with like the voice acting. That's all over this game. Like I don't think there's a bad written character. Like there's not. I would say there's like maybe at max 9 main characters like throughout the
Mhm.
plot, and I would say I enjoyed the performances and them as people for 7 or 8 of them because
Okay.
they're just so good. There are like side characters every once in a while, but like
Mhm.
I love Lucas, I love Hugo, poor guy. Amicia is a freaking badass. Uh, have you? I don't want to say that. I don't remember what chapter 4 is. Have you
It
met
was
the
the
person
protector's
who
duty
yes?
was
Have you got bashed in the skull yet by a sword hilt?
no.
Okay, I won't say anything else. But there's a person that basically hunts you down to try to kill you and then switches sides. Anyway,
Ah,
and I liked him as well. There's another character later on who basically gives you a reality check and essentially becomes your mother. I thought your mother died in the first one because I only played it once and I was
I
like,
kind of thought she did too, but
then I remembered. I think it just shows her dying at the beginning of the game and then she comes back later on. Like it's one of those like, haha, I'm
gotcha,
alive kind of things.
gotcha,
But
gotcha.
could be wrong. Um, I think this
Because the
game is
order,
also paced brilliantly. Go on.
I was just gonna say, because the order doesn't necessarily seem all they're cracked up to be. I'm just gonna.
Oh, you learn even more about that shit, Alec. The Order is just a
Okay,
freaking terribly organized cult. That's it. A terrified cult, I would
gotcha.
say. Not terrifying, well, that too, but terrified. Like they're just scared of the macula.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think this is paced brilliantly as well, at both the narrative and the gameplay segments, because it introduces hints and twists of like small bits to come later on in gameplay. Because there's a point where you get like separated in the rats from Hugo or Lucas, and then like that comes out to play several other times after that, and like bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It
Mm-hmm.
always ups the ante in terms of gameplay and things you've learned and settings. So like the first setting you go to is like just a village, and then you decimate it. Then it's another village that's bigger, and there's more to it. Then there's like tombs, and there's this one thing. I'm gonna spoil a little bit, not a lot, but
Yeah.
you go into like this little like rat cave thing, where they're like if the flood from Halo was on current gen and it was just darker and more like plaguey, that's what it looks like all over this cave. It's fucking
Interesting.
gross and I love it. It's one of those things. So yeah, and they keep upping the ante and upping the ante and upping the
Okay.
ante and for settings. And there's even more like crypts and shit. It's awesome. I love that so much. Oh, and I think one thing I think shouldn't go without being said in terms of a narrative is the fact that Hugo is such a well-written child character. Writing
Oh yeah.
children in video games is always weird. Like it's like,
Especially them back in the 1300s.
yeah, that probably wasn't a one-to-one for what it would actually be like. But it's so weird to write a child character, especially if like they are dying. Like that's always what the thing is. It's like, oh, this child has cancer, or this child is
Yep.
dying from a disease, and like that's happening here, but they're playing with it a little bit. He feels like a genuine child. He is so out of the loop at times. There's a time where like Amicia's walking in, she's trying to gather information about this curse, and he's like, "Hi, have you seen a bird?" It's because he has a dream about that bird.
Yep.
And she's like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like, what do you mean? What, you can't just go asking questions like that. Like, and he's like, "Oh." And then there's a moment where they find where the bird is on this like statue, and Amicia is like, "Oh hey, we're gonna pray for our father here," and they're like, "Oh okay, cool." And then Hugo's like, oh yes, dear father, and she's like, shut the fuck up, I want to talk about this bird. Like it was just a ruse to get them away so they could discuss the bird, and Hugo's like, huh, oh yes. So like he's a well-written character and I love it so much.
That's awesome.
There's a line where he says, what is it, something like, oh, he's like, I'm gonna keep my eyes piled, and she's like, peeled, it's peeled, and he's like, that's horrible. She laughs. She's like, it is kind of horrible. Why would you say
Hmm.
that? And I just really like that moment as well.
Yeah.
All right, now to the gameplay, the meat and potatoes. Okay, the tutorial lasts a long time, I think, and I don't necessarily love that, but they do try to
Mm.
incorporate a lot of things into the stealth mechanic, into all the tools you're using, so that overstays its welcome in my opinion, but I think it's necessary. Jesus, I mentioned at the top of the show that this feels like stealth done right, and it's so optimized in my opinion. Like if you, it's like a modernization of an old stealth game with the twist. And I think that shouldn't be understated as well. It feels like a next gen stealth game, and I love it for that, or current gen, I guess. One of the downsides I think about this game, it's at the top, but it feels more in place here. The replayability. I think this is a one and done. You play this one time and you're done.
Yep.
However, I love those games. I love playing a game one time and never touching it again because that is my experience with that
Hmm.
game. I love that. I understand how if you don't pick this up on Game Pass, you're like $70 or something, I can only play once for 15 hours, 15, like I get it. I understand that. I think it's worth it though. I think the experience that they are crafting, this is a directed video game. This is
Oh
something
yeah.
that someone put a lot of art into, put a lot of thought into, and narrative and gameplay and everything. Like this is the top quality product for 2022 in my opinion. Like it's probably in my top 5 of the year so far.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
even top 3 by when I do the final list. So I really enjoyed it for what it was narratively. In gameplay situations. Close quarters combat, I think in the first game that was like very, very scarce, whatever the fucking word is. Um,
Sparse, yeah.
Sparse. Okay, cool. In the first game, it never felt like that was intended to even be there. Like it just felt like we're putting this
Yeah.
in because you might suck at stealth. Like that felt like why
I
it was there.
yes. I
Me too. Here, it felt like it had a purpose, it had intention, and everything like this game felt deliberate, even in how it's
hmm
paced, when you find things going into certain situations, and I feel like the combat is no different. I think the combat uh, you feel more in control about it. It feels more current gen. I keep saying that a lot. But in terms of combat, you have like the slingshot, the crossbow, and all that. I don't think they do enough with those things, and that's not me saying they don't offer enough options. I just think it feels very much like the first game in that accord. You don't always have to take something from the first game and the sequel up the ante in every single thing. But I felt like one of the
Right.
things that I felt was lacking in the first game was kind of like that variety there. And here it kind of felt samey. But if you go right into this, then I think that would feel just fine. But yeah, you don't usually kill people with a slingshot in video games. Like it's not usually what you do.
Mhm.
So I think that's a unique take, and I enjoy it for what it is. So
Yeah, I just gonna quick minute. I think it's chapter 2 or 3, and it's not like a huge spoiler, but it's basically like you just as a Misi, you almost have like a little panic attack because of you're trying to get something for Hugo and you can't find it.
Alec, Alec, I love you because that's in my. I said, is Misi having a panic attack? That's literally my note. So
Mhm.
we're on the same wavelength. Yeah, I
And
enjoy that.
it was just so cool, like or not so cool, but like for me as somebody who's not huge into stealth, and you just get the segment where she's just yelling at all these guards, come at me, and then it's like you're just taking them out, headshot,
Hmm.
headshot,
Hmm.
headshot, and it was
Hmm.
just like you're just going in essentially into this huge rage filled moment,
Yeah,
and
and
it
it works
was
both
just
gameplay and narratively. Like it.
yes, such a great moment, and that's followed up by well I think you had mentioned earlier of Lucas just being like, hey, like just but going back to the pure stealth segments, like you don't need to kill these guys.
Like we didn't have to do that. I love that. Why are we killing these men? Fuck them. Essentially, she does not.
Basically,
She does not. She doesn't say fuck. That's not a thing. But she basically says fuck them. All right.
yeah, yep.
Essentially. All right. Continuing on the gameplay. Suspense in this game, like I love suspense when it's done right. I think there's something off about the suspense in this game. I think the twist means you have to rework the formula on the stealth a little bit, and I don't know how to fix that entirely, but I did feel like it
Mhm.
was fighting against me a lot in suspense. Like I never felt like the oh shit Resident Evil, I'm out of ammo running, and I just barely made it through this segment. Like I felt like if I
Right.
don't do this right 100%, like I don't even have a shot. Like there is no I managed to get through it. Like you have to go meticulously through all of this, and I appreciate it for that. But like there's like little room for if you do it wrong, like for wiggle room there. And I feel like that's kind of where it falls a little bit for me. We need to talk about the skill system. I really like the skill system because as you play, like depending on how you play, that your skill just magically goes up on its own. And like you're like, yeah, game's been doing that forever, but not like this. Well, kind of like this, but it's different because
I see what you're
there's
saying. Like,
there's
here, go ahead.
because like in like Skyrim, you're like, I'm using destruction magic. My destruction magic goes up. So like in concept, that makes sense. Like as a video game, but here it's like
But like,
if
you still have to go and pick your perk points.
well, yes, you can choose.
You
No,
can still level up your destruction in Skyrim, but you still have to go in to the menu
that's
and
right.
choose your perks.
That's right. Yes, you were talking about Skyrim. I was thinking about Plague Tale just a second ago. Yes, you are correct. You are absolutely right. But here, it depends on how you approach a situation. So like we already brought up, you can go in a situation and just fucking headshot everyone if you want to, if they don't have a helmet or whatever. But that will put up your aggressive stat, your combat stat, and so you will have a higher aggressive stat than your stealth stat. So if you just go like balls to the wall, killing everyone right at the beginning, you're going to struggle in the middle of the game because you cannot do that on certain segments. Like you have to stealth through at least a part of this. So I highly suggest stealthing through like the first like 1/3 of the game, at least, just to get that stealth stat up a little bit, because then you get like a lighter step and you're like you're harder to detect and everything. So like there's like 3, I want to say like upgrades per perk.
Yep.
It's alchemy, it's stealth, and which they're all called different things, but it's like opportunism for alchemy, it's prudence for stealth, and I want to say it's aggressive or some for combat or something like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And surprisingly, my highest stat was alchemy. I don't know why.
That's what
I don't know
upgraded
why.
for me first too. Because maybe it's just because I was just like I was getting the ingredients and I was just spamming it, just making sure I'm like full at all times.
Like that seems like a pretty normal thing. Like doesn't everyone do that? I don't know.
Right.
To be fair, my first one was stealth because I was going through a certain way at the beginning because you're forced to a certain way at the beginning. But so my first one that was highest was stealth, but my first time to get like an upgrade was alchemy, and I was like, that's a little weird. Anyway, I still like that whole system because it
really
feels
cool.
very unique. It's a nice touch on it, a nice twist to it. So I loved that.
Yeah, it really forced you to
enemies.
play certain ways to help get you those stats or whatever perks you wanted.
But yeah, I did find myself being like, okay, my aggressive stat is lower than my stealth stat. Maybe I just kill these 2 people at the end, and that will help me get closer to upping that aggressive. You know what I mean? Like I was looking at it every once in a while, see where I'm at, and my stealth, my alchemy was way up, which is weird because I thought like I'm fucking killing everyone in this fucking game. Like I thought my aggressive stat would be like like maxed out, but no, I had a good balance, I guess. I do want to get to enemies and their variety, but before I get to there, because we didn't talk about, have you witnessed the thing like the last ditch effort to get out of the rats, like the sparkler thingy? Have you? You know what I'm talking about? In the first one they had it. In the second one they have it again. Anyway, did you encounter shivs
Possibly.
yet? Like you get like a knife.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. It's like that. Where like it's like an instant kill against certain enemies, right? Instead of an instant kill on an enemy, it's like the rats are about to get me. I pop this thing and, and I smack the ground with it, and that's how you get out. So you can find like I call them sparklers. There's another word for it, but it's essentially like a sparkler, and it's emanating light, and you're smacking the ground. It only lasts like 10 seconds. So you can find sparklers. You can find knives. The thing I like about the knives, because it's an instant kill. I wish you could carry more than one, because I think you should. I think 2. I think 2 would be perfect. I really do, but I understand why it's 1, and here's why. When you get to upgrade tables or whatever they're called, workbenches, you have to. Sometimes they're locked, and you have to use a knife to open it, and that uses your knife. So it's a risk reward. What do I want? Do I want that insta kill, or do I want to try to upgrade my stuff? That's what I like about it. However, when you are using your knife to do that, there are a bunch of stuff in the workbench for you, so you're also getting a bunch of extra shit.
Yeah.
I wanted the knife, so I never used the workbenches except for like just to see the first time I did, just to see what's in there, see how it is. I probably should have used the workbenches because I eventually unlocked the thing where I didn't need to use workbenches. There's like a perk where you can, as long as you find tools, you can do it on your own wherever you're at. So as long as you find, and then the
that makes sense
one,
why that's in the menu then.
What do you mean? Oh, upgrade?
Like
yes.
the
correct.
upgrade, yeah.
Correct. Yes. And then even the third most upgraded version of that is you just have to find the pieces now. You have like a master
dang.
tool, like a master key. So you just need to collect
Mhm.
the pieces. I did that as soon as I was able to do that. I did that, which was kind of wrong because then I wasn't able to find tools ever again. Because I didn't get the master tool. I got like you can upgrade as long as you find tools. Like you don't need a workbench. I could not find
Gotcha.
tools anywhere in this fucking game. I found like maybe 7 the entire time. And part of
Oh
that
wow.
feels like me because I'm trying to barrel through this thing. I'm
Yep.
trying to go.
Yep.
I'm trying to experience a little bit of the side stuff, but not a ton. To its credit, the side stuff is very, very, very brief. Like if you're going like
Mhm.
there's like a fork in the road, you want to go to A or B. If you go to B, you're going out of your way maybe 2 minutes. And there's like a little story
Gotcha.
segment that acts as like collectible, where it's like Hugo's moments or Hugo's collectibles or his flowers or whatever.
Oh
There
yeah.
was one I
Yep.
really
Yep. Yep.
enjoyed at the beginning where there's this lady who's just like on her deathbed and she looks at Amicia and she's like, I don't remember what name. She's like, Carol, is that you? And Amicia's like, I'm not Carol. And she's like, Carol. And she's like, okay. And she comforts her. Like, she's like, okay, I'm Carol in
Mm-hmm.
this moment. So for your final moments, I will be Carol. And then she passes away. And Lucas is like, or Amicia's like, I didn't do anything. And Lucas is like, you did everything. And then they up, and that's the whole thing, and they leave. And I'm like, fuck, that was heavy as shit. And it lasted like 30 seconds. Like, I like side stuff like that. And I think they did it correctly. And that's why I think this game is crafted very deliberately, and they don't waste your time. Like, the extra stuff,
Mm-hmm.
very borderline short. And I love it for that. So the experiences you get are going to be very, very similar across the board. So yeah. Some of the puzzles that you had to find a thing to use your slingshot to hit the little gear so it breaks and then something falls.
Mm-hmm.
Those are hard to find sometimes. They're not necessarily fun. I don't know. I felt like those are fine. It doesn't break the game. It doesn't make it boring. I just felt like, like I could do without these
Mm-hmm.
aspects of this.
Like this game would almost benefit from like a detective vision or like listen mode kind of thing, just to help like, or maybe an accessibility setting, just to help highlight those items.
Hugo has a rat vision where he can do that for enemies.
Oh,
So that, I
okay.
mean, that's a thing later on. But
Right, but I'm just
those are
talking about like, for like
rat
puzzle
sense.
elements. So
I-
like
I
you maybe
agree.
like
I agree.
highlight like those things that you have to like hit to break, or like torches, like stuff
And
like that. You know, just
To their credit, they usually make those things glossy and shine and whatever. But like,
yes,
it's never enough. It's never enough. So, especially oftentimes it's like way in the distance, and you're like, is that? Is that? And I'm like, I'm getting up here on my TV. Like I'm getting up there. Like, and I had my wife. I was like, is that shiny over there? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, cool, I'm going for it. And I eventually was just aiming over there until it turned yellow, and I got it. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. The last thing I want to talk about in forms of combat are the enemies. I don't know how many different enemies you encountered, only 4 chapters in, but there's like the heavily guarded knights, like full on body armor. And some of them have like the thing where you drop their chest plate on the front and the back, or vice versa. So like one guy will have it on the back, one guy will have it on the front. When they're on the front, they're hard as shit to get because you cannot distract them enough. And sometimes there's a guy who is just trying to throw a spear at you, or trying to throw a bow and arrow, trying to shoot an arrow at you, and they usually don't have a helmet, so you can just headshot that guy, and you're like, cool, you're done. Then there's people who don't have a helmet, but they have a shield, so you can't just headshot them because they'll block it. And I like the variety there. I think
Yeah.
there's enough variety with what you're given and the enemies that you encounter. So I like the enemy variety, but I did feel like, just like I felt about like the entirety of the stealth as a whole, that it's missing something, and I don't know what it is. Like, again, these are small itty bitty qualms. Like, the enemy variety is like a 9.5. You know what? Like, like, there's just something that's missing. And same thing with the stealth. There's just something that's missing. But that'll be the last I say about that. So yeah. Is there any questions you had before I give my final score, Alec?
Not really. Like I'd say I've kind of been you kind of got the little first 25% of the game done, and I'm it's got hooks in me. So like I can't wait to get back to it eventually, but there's a lot of other games that I want to get to first to at least give a dabble in, so that way I can have some stuff to talk about whenever we get to Game of the Year conversations. So
Fair enough. It is a story too. Like this, I love how well written this game
Oh,
is.
yeah.
It's probably the best written game of this year. Like if it wins best narrative, I'd be like, yes, thank you. Okay, And I will say this, I'm not going to spoil the ending. I'm not spoiling the ending, but this game just fucking ends. There's no like something
Mm,
happens and it's just credits. And you're like, and there is the
mm.
epilogue or whatever, but like
Gotcha.
it just boom, credits. And you're like, uh what? But the balls on them to do that. Love it.
Yeah.
It worked for me.
Yeah.
Cuz games don't do that anymore. It's always like make a choice or whatever. Like they directed the shit out of this game and I
Mm.
commend them for that. Um yeah, so I think 2 when comparing it to 1, 2 is like a bigger budget action sequel to the first one. The first one was like, here's the meat and potatoes, here's the idea we have. But I feel like I don't want to say they lost their identity from the first game. I feel like they pivoted to something else from the first game because
Yeah.
the first game was dark. It was dark. It had the same themes. I don't. You understand what I'm getting at? There's something
Oh, yeah,
about
for sure.
how they dig into it in 2 throughout the entirety of it. Like the character almost seems different from the first one. And like, yeah, people grow. I understand that, but like they don't seem like a logical leap in my opinion.
Mhm.
However, fucking love this game. Well written, well the gameplay and stealth and combat, while not perfect, is very very good. So yeah, I cannot speak any more highly on this game. I have my few qualms, but after everything I've said, Alec, I am giving Plague Tale Requiem a 9 out of 10. And I do not do usually
Oh,
anything higher than an 8.5. So here we are. How
awesome.
do you feel about that?
So far in, I can start to see the um I can start to see that. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
forget the word I was trying to think of, but
Like the hints at it?
the hint, exactly, the hints of the fledglings, like you know what I mean, like just like
Yeah.
the hints of that. Yeah,
Sure.
of it starting out. So
Yeah. And usually I'm okay. So like if something historically, if something gets a
Mhm.
6.5, I give it a 7. If something gets a 7, I give it a 7.5. Historically, I don't know why that's
Mhm.
always the case. My Switch Sports review, basically 7s across the board. I was like 7.5. Hell yeah. And I don't know why. So I would bet money that this averages out around an 83 to an 85
I think that's about what it has on
because I
OpenCritic
have
right
it as a
now.
9. So I'm like,
You're
okay.
just a half point higher than everybody.
I don't know why. But so yeah, maybe if you watch something I review, Austin gave it a 9. Oh, okay, it's an 8.5. I got it. Okay, that makes sense. I don't know, man. But yeah. So that is my review on Plague Tale Requiem. Alec, do you have any closing thoughts? If not, I'm gonna wave goodbye to the camera.
I said, just say it's on Game Pass. So if you have that, at least give
Yes,
it a try. Like it
absolutely.
is, like for me, like sometimes these kind of darker games, much like those darker shows like The Boys or Severance, like I kind of need to be in the mood for them. So like
Totally.
maybe that's part of it too, is that I wasn't not quite in the mood for one of those right now as well. So once I am in one of those moods, I'm definitely gonna be going back to that. But I would say it's definitely worth checking out if you have Game Pass. So
Could not agree more. Yeah, I think it's. I would pay $70 for this game. I will say that if it was on a Game Pass, from what I experienced, this is well worth $70.
mhm.
Put that on the box. So, all right. I'm gonna leave goodbye to the camera. Thank you for watching our Plague Tale Requiem review. Check out our other stuff. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff on all the socials, everywhere, TikTok, YouTube, all that fun. Bye bye. Thank you for watching. See you later.